Well, you've been in the corporate world before breaking out. What advice would you give to somebody who is currently in a corporate world and thinking of breaking out on their own? What advice will you give to them?
That's a really, really good question. Because, what I would say is it is very rewarding to be an entrepreneur. There's no doubt about it. However, don't just jump without a plan. And this is why many people who begin businesses, when things go wrong, it confuses them, it demotivates them, and they end up back into the corporate environment. Because initially it's a feeling, and they move on that feeling, and that's fine, that's okay. But I always say have a plan. Now, what do I mean by that? Understand what your minimum budget is in terms of your quality of life, so that while you're building your business, you don't end up in a situation where you turn around and hate the very business that you're building because your quality of life is completely destroyed. Whether that be in terms of finances, whether that be in terms of time, etc. Identify what is the minimum you need in order to maintain your level of happiness. Because the worst thing is to do business from a state of frustration and from a state of desperation. So that's one. The second thing is be honest with yourself. And when I say be honest, look at your personal resources, your time, your level of energy, and your level of finances. What can you realistically do to push your business forward? It doesn't make sense to say, I am going to spend 5 hours a day on my business when you know, based on family commitments and other things, you probably can only do 1 hour.
Yeah.
So there's so many things, but what I would say is be very diligent before you jump. Ensure that you set yourself up for success and don't just jump. Have a plan in place.
Yeah. Well, let me throw this in. I think I saw a post today. It says, I asked God for wisdom and God gave me problems to solve. So sometimes you think, and I think I've said it so many times on this platform, that sometimes like we should cherish our problems because they all build us up. And I remember back in the day, so many years back, when I came out of the uni and I didn't find a job and I had to start doing something on my own. But that was so difficult because as a young girl back then, I think I was around 24 years or 23 years then. And people would say those days being an entrepreneur wasn't as common as it is today, especially for a young girl who had just come out of the uni. And people would say, why did you choose to take the difficult road? Because at that time, all my friends were going into the corporate world and they were doing so well. And I was like scraping along, kind of. The only good was I wasn't renting because I was still living with my parents and I'll still get the support. Like when I need to move around and do my business, I had all of those in place for me, but it was quite difficult. And when you look at them, and then a number of times I doubted myself. And when people said, why are you doing it? I would ask myself, is it worth it? Because you look at the energy that has gone in and everything and you don't get much back. You get it? But all that time I had learned the ropes. And it looked like God was preparing, because at that time I didn't have any responsibility. I didn't have children. I wasn't married. I was living with my parents, so I could still eat. I had shelter. I had a car at my disposal. Like, I wasn't spending much. So it wasn't like if I wasn't making much, I wouldn't feel it. You get it? But that was my preparation stage. So I had to learn to do so many things on my own. Do marketing, do graphics, do everything on my own. Now, at the point where I needed those skills to come back to me, I had responsibility and they are paying off. So everything I have done, right from artwork to marketing to everything, I have not had to depend on anybody but myself. So sometimes, just like you said, take your time, reflect, know if the timing is right for you. If you have a lot of everything you said really makes sense, 100%, and I agree with you. Else you would give up too quickly.
Yes. And one thing I would add to that, Sheila, which is the point that you brought up there, you stuck with it. The thing is, as an entrepreneur, no one is going to wake you up in the morning and say, okay, this is what you have to get done and this is how resilient you need to be. That has to come from inside, because every day there is going to be a challenge, every single day. And if you don't have that resilience to stick with it, it will deteriorate very quickly, because trust me, as an entrepreneur, anything that can go wrong probably will.